field, yeah. She rocked the state of Mississippi. Now a few more black people stand there. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. For 20 years she weighed the cotton down on a white man's farm. She received threats on her life, was fired from her job, scorned and kicked off the farm. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's what the lady would yell. Her body was beaten and she walked crippled, trying to vote. She was thrown in jail. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Land of the free and home of the slave, she criticized the law of the land. For 100 years, blacks had lived in fear. Now they marched, took their lives in their hands. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. She came by here and she didn't stay long. Helped to turn a few things around. Cancer took her body, but the struggle got her soul. Now we've laid her body in the ground. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer.
Tony, just let me know when you're ready to talk. I just muted your microphone.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to talk.
You go ahead.
Good morning. We got it that the meeting is being recorded. Welcome everyone to the second annual Fannie Lou Hamer Branch Human Rights Conference. I'm in Columbus, Georgia at the 4th Street Baptist Church, where at 11 o'clock we're having an in-person meeting. So we're getting set up here. But I do want to say that I am so grateful to Rebecca Irby for facilitating the conversation this morning about the TPNW, and to Patrick O'Neill and Vicki Elson for sharing the important information we're going to hear. So I'm going to be muted until the end when I'll say so long. But I hope to be able to participate in the small groups and other activities that will happen. So Rebecca, it's on you. Thank you so much.
Incredible. Can everyone hear me?
Am I muted?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome and good morning, everyone. It's such an honor to be here with you this morning. We're going to kick things off with Patrick O'Neill. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Patrick, and welcome. Puerto, please take it away.
Thanks.
Actually,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, I'm so sorry, Patrick. I'm realizing, George, if you're able to put up or help us with the bios, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. Patrick's bio is in the chat.
Okay. So Patrick, why don't, instead of us reading your bio, why don't you just give us a little intro to yourself and then your 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Patrick, and welcome.
Well, I'm calling from North Carolina, right near Raleigh. I live at the Father Charlie Mulholland Catholic Worker House. I'm 66 years old and partnered with Mary Ryder, who is my wife and the mother of our 8 children. I am a longtime peace activist, starting when I was in my 20s. And I guess I'll say I'm proud to say that all 8 of my children marched for Black Lives Matter. So I guess I'll drop it. I'll leave it off there. People can read it if they'd like. Should I just start the presentation, folks?
Yes, please. Thank you so much,
Okay, thank
Patrick.
you, Rebecca. So my presentation today is titled The Big Lie. As nonviolent people of truth, we are tasked today with perhaps the most important work in human history. As a nation, we have been fixated on what the media calls the big lie being perpetrated by Donald Trump, that he was the rightfully elected president in 2020. While Trump's big lie represents a threat to democracy as we know it, we face a far more insidious, bigger lie that is being perpetrated by the military-industrial complex, a lie that represents a threat to all creation. While Trump's big lie is supported by a large percentage of racists, Republican bigots, and fascists, the war machine's bigger lie has strong bipartisan support from the majority of Congress and a large majority of US citizens. In fact, the bigger lie is not even acknowledged to be a lie at all. The Pentagon, where generals actually gather to plan the end of the world, is given all the real support it wants to carry on its work of death, while our work to expose the lies that claim the military keeps us safe and free is considered unpatriotic folly of the worst kind. As Trump's mobs spew hate and scream USA, USA on our streets, the bigger lie maintains its stranglehold on our nation by a level of indoctrination essentially inculcated by the collective brainwashing of the masses. This more subtle, bigger lie also includes a mob that waves the flag and touts American exceptionalism and is backed by Congress to the tune of billions of dollars of appropriations for death-dealing weapons that don't keep anyone safe. It's important to do our best to ignore the day-to-day noise being made by Trump and try to not waste our energy on the big lie. The very future of creation is at stake. Don't be distracted by the Republicans or the Democrats, both of whom are beholden to the war machine. Global warming, nuclear weapons, white supremacy, and endless war are all parts of the bigger lie that we must expose and stop. Militarism is the biggest contributor to climate change in the world. Our job is to maintain our focus and the world's focus on the fact that the Pentagon, corporate America, and Congress are inexplicably linked together in an effort that may well lead humanity into World War III, or worse, an irreversible climate disaster that could lead to human extinction. We have to take direct action, not indirect action. Relying on politicians, corporations, or even our religious leaders to do our bidding is not a solution to stopping the bigger lie. War, white supremacy, corporate greed, and abuse of the earth are what we're up against. No intermediary will solve this calamity. As North Carolina peace activist Roger Ehrlich says, the world's in big trouble. We have to have big ambitions and big plans for how to mobilize people, to show them how they're being lied to, that it's not true that money used for war is benefiting the people. In my 40 plus years as a peace activist, I've spent more than 3 years incarcerated in our nation's jails, prisons, and halfway houses, mostly for nonviolent acts of resistance to war and weapons of mass destruction. I have been arrested at the Pentagon 7 times. This is not my recruitment pitch for civil resistance to war making, although I think that's a good idea. But it is my pitch for more direct action that goes far beyond the false hope of many Americans who believe the legislative process will be the solution to the peril we now face as a human family. The consortium of institutions comprised of Congress, the military-industrial complex, and U.S. corporations cannot be the same ones that change the deadly course of action we're taking. The perpetrators of racism, violence, and war will never offer the solution to ending racism, violence, and war. That's our job. If the United States represents an exceptional force for good in the world, why is the U.S. actively engaging in a proxy war with Russia and brinksmanship with China, both nuclear-armed powers? Rather than work for a peaceful solution between Russia and Ukraine, the U.S. is enabling the war to escalate while thousands of people are maimed and killed, and the climate is being irreparably damaged by the heavy bombing of Ukraine's infrastructure. All this while the prospect of nuclear war is lurking as a frightening backdrop. And why in the world did Nancy Pelosi travel to Taiwan as a way to anger the Chinese, another global power we always seem to be picking a fight with? Sometimes it appears the U.S. empire actually wants to start a major world war. The same holds true for U.S. support for Israel, also a nuclear nation engaged in brutal practices against the Palestinian people. Why does America support such brutality? How else can we explain these dangerous practices by the U.S. government other than to tell the truth? The United States is an imperialist power, undergirded by a history that includes the colonial slaughter of our native people, the kidnapping, enslavement, rape, and lynching of African people, international exploitation and greed, and the use of war to kill tens of millions of people throughout the world. We must stop our own government's madness if we want to save creation. Trump also talks of the steal, referring to the election he claims was stolen from him. But what I call the bigger steal is this week's vote in the House of Representatives to allocate $858 billion for a war spending bill that is more than the combined military budgets of China, India, the United Kingdom, Russia, France, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and South Korea combined. That 350 to 80 vote in the House in favor of the 2023 National War Authorization Act included just 45 Democrats and 35 Republicans who voted no, proving my point that U.S. lawmakers will never bring peace to our world. The bigger steal is the Pentagon getting the funds that should be used to end poverty, reverse global warming, and provide health care for the poor. The bigger steal is being perpetrated by the military-industrial complex that buys out our legislators and is almost completely ignored by everyone. In the face of this $858 billion payout for war making, all we get from the corporate news media is uncritical silence. Trump wishes he had it so good. At my federal trial in 2020, my Catholic worker co-defendant Carmen Trida asked a rhetorical question. If I rob a bank while brandishing a gun but don't shoot it, am I still using the gun even though it was not fired? The answer, of course, is yes. And Carmen pointed out the same can be said for nuclear weapons. Nations that have nuclear weapons know that those weapons are a threat, even if they are not detonated. And these weapons also kill them because the manufacture of weapons and the practice of war steal resources away from human needs and care for creation. And sadly, most of us cannot even turn to our houses of worship to take stands against war. Many U.S. churches fly American flags in their sanctuaries and give their support for wars. In times of war, church leaders often bless the troops and pray for victory instead of for peace. In my denomination, Roman Catholicism, you might be surprised and saddened to know that we actually have what's known as an Archdiocese for Military Services USA, an actual diocese for the military. Making matters worse, in a clear rejection of church reforms introduced by Pope Francis, last month, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops elected Archbishop Timothy P. Broglio, the head of the Archdiocese for Military Services USA, as its new president. Already friendly to the Pentagon, now the nation's bishops have elected a president who is a full-fledged cheerleader for war. One of my mentors is Phil Berrigan, a former Catholic priest, the great civil rights and anti-war activist who died 20 years ago this month, and his widow, Elizabeth McAllister, who was also my co-defendant in the Kings Bay Plowshare 7. Both say war making is actually America's state religion. Phil and Liz named that religion of the U.S. nation state nuclearism, adding that faith in the bomb is greater than our nation's faith in any deity. All of us gathered on today's Zoom are basically outliers in U.S. culture. What makes us outliers and sets us apart for scorn are actually assets that make us better human beings and better activists. First, we don't believe in killing. What seems like such an admirable stance is actually not a commonly held belief among earthlings. Second, we don't trust the government or most politicians. Again, I'll quote Phil Berrigan, who said, quote, lying and war are always associated. Pay attention to war makers when they try to defend their current war. If they move their lips, they're lying, unquote. Most Americans don't engage in critical thinking. They just trust the government. That's where we come in. All we can do is tell the truth about America's history of racism, war making, and exploitation. We can even prove it. Don't give up telling the truth, because like the Bible says, the truth will set you free. In conclusion, my point is that we must keep things in perspective as we make priorities for our anti-war, anti-nuclear, and anti-racism work. And I'll include anti-incarceration as well. While Trump's big lie is now being openly challenged by the media and some politicians, the bigger lie remains fully in place, unquestioned, and unchallenged by the powers that be in Congress and the media. We must offer this world an alternative to killing, racism, war, and mutually assured destruction. We need to break the cycle of indoctrination the military-industrial complex has on the people of this nation. We must build a nonviolent, critical mass movement founded on goodness, decency, and diplomacy. We must bring a positive, loving force. We must be a positive, loving force for good for our sisters and brothers who have been brainwashed by the bigger lie. We need to preach the bigger truth, which is love, not war. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for that. And I see that we have a question in the chat. If you have other questions, please put them in there. We're going to be doing a Q&A at the end of the presentations, and we have a little video to show as well. And then we'll be getting into our Q&A. But I want to invite Vicki to come off of mute now. So Vicki from nuclearban.us. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and get into your presentation. Thank you, George. So Vicki's bio is up on the screen. And please, Vicki, take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Patrick. I believe that humanity could come together and create a world of lasting peace and justice. I also believe that we could just as easily destroy ourselves and the rest of the planet with us. I think nuclear weapons are stupid, expensive, dangerous, and morally reprehensible. They're also getting in the way of taking serious action on the climate crisis. But what if we could feed two birds with one scone, as they say. What if we were to dismantle every last nuclear weapon and shift all the wasted money, infrastructure, and brain power to green technologies to address the climate crisis? That wouldn't be the end of war or the end of ecological disaster, but it would be a great start, and it might even encourage us to cooperate better on a global scale to address things like pandemics, poverty, injustice, and human rights. Meanwhile, it's awfully hard to cooperate on climate problems while the US and Russia and the world's other biggest carbon emitters have nuclear weapons pointed at each other with the very real threat they could be used any minute. And it's hard to find the money to address climate problems when so much of our national budget goes to war in general and nuclear weapons in particular. And it's not just the money. We need the brain power. We need scientists and engineers to stop making machines that are designed to wipe out whole cities and give them better jobs working on green technologies. So this is what we need: international cooperation, money, brain power, green technologies going in the right direction. Do you want to get rid of nuclear weapons? So does the rest of the world. 122 countries came together at the United Nations in 2017 and agreed the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. That day changed my life. I happened to be in the building. There were survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki who had spent their entire lives trying to make sure that this never happens to anybody again. So far, 91 countries have signed the treaty. 68 have ratified it. That means that over a third of the world's countries have made everything to do with nuclear weapons illegal under international law in those countries. There's a new international norm, like chemical weapons, like biological weapons. Nuclear weapons are unacceptable to the world. So the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons won the Nobel Peace Prize for this treaty. If you think the treaty is beautiful, the Nobel Committee agrees with you. And it's a tool that we can use. We now have a powerful legal argument against the dangerous policies of the 9 nuclear-armed nations, which you probably know are the US, Russia, China, UK, France, Israel, India, Pakistan, and North Korea. It gives us a credible foothold, this treaty, against the 24 profiteering companies that currently bribe legislators to funnel taxpayer billions into their industry. The law is on our side. History is on our side. The treaty gives us new opportunities for action. We can demonstrate, we can educate, we can activate our networks, we can make life unpleasant for the profiteers and with shareholder action, nonviolent direct action, divestment. The city of New York just planned to divest its pension fund from nuclear weapons. That's huge. And there is divestment taking place in large funds all over the world. So there is progress being made thanks to this treaty and people working to enact it. So pressure on the companies worked at the end of the Cold War. General Electric, Ford, DuPont, Westinghouse, Morton Salt, they stopped making nuclear weapons because of consumer pressure and divestment and stigma. We should have kept going and gotten all the companies, and we still can. I recently had the opportunity to put a copy of the treaty into the hands of the CEO of Northrop Grumman. She said, "Oh, we're just, protecting our country." And I said, "Yeah, and we're protecting the whole world." But the treaty gave me the credibility to be able to talk about that with her. We still have a ways to go with that conversation. So whatever you do, I think the most powerful step now is to demand that the US president sign the treaty. Now, I know that some people think that political action is not worth the effort. I think it's worth the effort personally. So that's what I want to talk about. Talk to Joe. Hey, Joe, Obviously, our nuclear weapons are not keeping us safe from Russia or China or North Korea right now, Mr. President. Or if they were keeping us safe, we wouldn't all be so nervous. Signing the treaty would not affect the nuclear arsenal right away. It wouldn't leave us defenseless, as so many people fear, which is a whole fallacy that I won't explicate in great detail right now. But if the US did sign the treaty, it would be an invitation to the other 8 nuclear armed nations to join the treaty and to work out the details of nuclear abolition. Eventually, the Senate would be asked to ratify the treaty, and we could get serious about shifting the resources to the climate problem. So getting the president to sign the treaty, getting the Senate to ratify, is that pie in the sky? It's not a radical proposal. The US already agreed under the Non-Proliferation Treaty more than 50 years ago to eliminate nuclear weapons in good faith and at an early date. We have to hold them to that promise. Let's get the word out. There's hope. Tell your friends, your students, your media, your organizations, your institutions, your city, state, and federal government. I have some concrete suggestions if you're interested, besides calling the president. Number 1, write, call, Zoom, or visit your member of the House of Representatives. Ask them to co-sponsor Eleanor Holmes Norton's bill, which is currently called HR 2850. It will have a new number and possibly some new language under the in the new session. But her bill is beautiful, and it has had the support of WILP, particularly Ellen Thomas and other leading WILP disarm people for many years. And it would require the US to sign and ratify the TPNW and convert the resources and green technologies to other pressing human needs. In other words, warheads to windmills. Number 2, ask your senator to initiate or co-sponsor a similar bill in the Senate. If you live in Georgia, hey, talk to Senator Warnock. Does he support saving the world 2 ways? 5, if you live in California, Maine, you know, these numbers don't match up with the ones I sent you, Rebecca. So anyway, if you live in Maine, California, Vermont, Massachusetts, Minnesota, or Rhode Island, those states all have potential state legislation, and we can sure use all the help we can get. In Massachusetts, we got a bill out of committee, but the government is so dysfunctional that it hasn't been voted on, but we're still working on it from several different angles. And we are working on similar bills in other states to support the treaty and convert the resources. Number 6, think about creating public celebrations for January 22nd, 2023. I saw that Robin asked a question about that in the chat. Yes, that is the 2nd anniversary of the TPNW entering into force as international law in the ratifying countries. There's a meeting on December 13th, which is next week at 7 Eastern time. The Ban Treaty Collaborative is doing that. And if you want to be invited to that meeting to plan activities to make public celebrations of the treaty on that day, the January 22nd, you can ask them for an invitation to that planning meeting. The email is orep@earthlink.net. So these concrete actions are lots more fun and lots more effective if we do them together. If we get our friends together, and you know, I think you have a superpower because you're somebody's constituent. They don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you, your representatives. And not all of them are completely, I was going to use a bad word. Not all of them are completely, against doing the right thing. Although we have been extremely disappointed that even the good ones have been voting for more and more funding for war. There is a little bit of hope, and we have to keep up the pressure. These are the people who do have the power to change things. So we can help you with talking points. We can help you. We can even join you at a virtual meeting with your representatives. But it's really you that they want to talk to. And all of this, educating and talking to legislators, will help change the conversation. Right now, the conversation is nuclear weapons will be around forever. What are we going to do to reduce risk? No, we have to change the conversation. Nuclear weapons days are numbered. The treaty is rising around the world. The government and the companies better get ready to be ahead of the curve. So I want to share a video of 6 of the members of Congress who are not for just faffing around while the world burns, at least in this regard. They are people who are willing to speak out boldly about total abolition of nuclear weapons. This is the best we have right now. The video might be a little bit jumpy on Zoom. If you want to see it again, go to nuclearban.us. And underneath the video, you'll find a button that says citizen action. And that has a lot of details also about reaching your member of Congress. You can find out where they stand on this issue and if you should thank them or if you should pressure them. And we did lose 3 of them with the last election, so we have to work even harder, but we do
For the
have—
sake of all people around the world, we must end the
There we go.
existence of nuclear weapons on this planet before nuclear weapons end the existence of human life on this planet.
It is my honor to be with all of you and speak in support of the I CAN pledge and the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons.
Right now, the threat of nuclear war has become more real this year than it has been for previous decades. The complete elimination of nuclear weapons is the only solution for a safer and more peaceful world. That's why I'm proud to join the call for the United States to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons alongside more than 120 countries.
Regrettably, the United States is not party to this treaty. Regrettably, none of the major nuclear powers is party to the treaty. As the world also races toward a climate catastrophe, we can't continue to build weapons that could trigger in an instant a climate catastrophe of unimaginable magnitude.
Conventional war could turn into a nuclear war, whether it's intentionally or miscalculation or even by accident. We have to be frightened. We have to be committed to action. We should do everything we can, and signing the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons would be a great way to start.
The United States is the only nation that has used nuclear weapons in war and possesses one of the largest nuclear weapon arsenals.
These are weapons that we can't afford and we can't afford to use. It's going to be over $1 trillion in the modernization of the next 30 years.
That could be invested in providing healthcare, clean water, quality education to every single neighbor across our country.
At a time when we are desperate to be able to deal with the consequences of the pandemic, this is lunacy.
Now, there are those who point to the invasion of Ukraine as a reason to call for a new arms race. I believe we must race in a different direction. Negotiations to reduce, disarm, and ultimately eliminate nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons are the most catastrophic, dangerous weapons ever created. These weapons cause widespread humanitarian and environmental damage, impacting everyone regardless of the target.
And let me be clear, while there are some who argue that nuclear weapons have kept the peace since the end of World War II, that is simply a lie.
My bill provides that the funds used for nuclear weapons in the United States be redirected to human and infrastructure needs, housing, health care, Social Security, restoring the environment, and creating carbon-free, nuclear-free energy.
I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton's bill to abolish nuclear weapons and increase investments in our economy and energy alternatives.
My bill would help the United States reestablish its moral leadership in the world.
Inclusive foreign policy centers human rights, justice, and peace as the pillars of America's engagement around the world, including the elimination of nuclear weapons. I know a better world without nuclear weapons and never-ending wars is possible.
That is why I call for divesting from war and violence and instead investing in healthcare, our environment, our communities, and our people.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I want to highlight and thank you, Vicky, for bringing that in for us and just the importance of connecting with our politicians right now. There's, as Vicky was saying, there's a lot on the line, but there's also so much hope when I see what New York was able to do, what Massachusetts has been able to do, what California has been able to do. It's incredible when people come together. I just moved from the East Coast to Michigan, and seeing also what Michigan was able to do in this last election cycle in codifying human rights into our Constitution, really fighting against a really big wave of oppression. So when we come together and when we have hope, we can see what's possible. We can see that really there's a very small majority that is incredibly loud in our country right now, talking about harming and oppression, but there is such a large groundswell of people all across the country who are very interested in human rights and coming together. And this issue of nuclear abolition, right now, it's not connected to all of these other issues, but it is so intimately interconnected, as Patrick brought in for us this morning. So I want to open the floor for questions before we go into our breakout. So we are all about action over here. So as opposed to just us talking to you, we want to invite you into the conversation. We want to invite you into planning actions with us. So that's what we're going to be doing in our breakout room shortly. But I do want to open the floor for some questions. I saw that we had a question from Martha about COP27. So this is specifically for Patrick. Is COP27 effective? And do we have action plans for the TPNW? So yes, for the TPNW, Martha, but Patrick, if you want to come on and talk about COP27, please.
Yeah, I'm not an expert about COP27. Of course, like everybody else, bringing the world's nations together to discuss solutions to climate change it's the only option we have, right? It's not like just a good idea. It literally is the only way that we can stop climate change. And I'll say this, that I have this sort of strange juxtaposition of hope and optimism and then fear at the same time, because I realize, and I not people aren't saying this, but I think it's true, that unless we abolish war and preparations for war, we're not going to be able to prevent global warming. That we can't simultaneously be planning the end of the world and saying we want to save the earth. I mean, that's incongruent and absurd, right? So my hope is that because scientists are saying, unambiguously and clearly, that climate change is real, it's human caused, and it's our priority to stop it. Many scientists also are participating in the military industrial complex and maintaining the war industry. So what we have to do is we have to get the scientific community on board to say just that unless we abolish war and the amazing amount of resources it consumes to be maintained, we can't stop global warming. I live near Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, which is in a town called Goldsboro, which actually is where William Barber, who heads up the Poor People's Campaign, is from. And I've known him for many years here in North Carolina. We're fortunate to have him as a local activist, really. And at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, 29 years ago, on December 2nd, 1993, Phil Berrigan, Bruce Friedrich, Lynn Fredrickson, and John Deere did a plowshares action at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. And that's where the F-15E Strike Eagle war jets are. They've really been the workhorse of the war on terror. But, sometimes I've gone along the runways there and watched these things take off day and night, one after another. I mean, even just the cost of petroleum, not gas fuel, but jet fuel for these jets, somewhere in the range of $10,000 an hour. I mean, it's obscene. And here we are driving around in our little Priuses and little hybrids and little electric cars and small cars, trying to do our best to sort of reduce our own personal carbon footprint. And you watch one of these F-15s take off with this incredible blast of fire coming out of the back of it, and it immediately reaches the speed of sound. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's horrific. And there's no way we can go on like this. So, I mean, COP27, of course, is a necessary, it's necessary. And there's complicated geopolitics that, to tell you the truth, I'm not that interested in. I'm just glad people are coming together to solve the problems, which is what we're doing this morning.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patrick. Teresa, I see your hand is raised. Teresa, can you hear us? We see you waving, but we can't hear you. Kareem, where I see Teresa is on Kareem's screen and you're muted. So perhaps unmuting will help us hear you.
She is speaking. We can't hear her, but she is speaking. Or she was.
Kareem, it's still muted on your profile.
Okay.
Now,
there we go. Yes.
Oh, great. Just acknowledging Shante McLaughlin to my immediate right and Walisha Wilson to her right from the Metro Atlanta branch. So we're in the house in the South. So I hope you'll make the main room the South so that we can participate in the breakout.
I can do that. Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, we'll leave the main room as the South breakout then. Thank you for that suggestion. Do we have any more questions before we move into our breakout? Or comments or statements that we would like to uplift before we go into our breakout? So yes, Vicky, please.
I just wanted to give a little update. So I was saying that we have lost 3 of the 12.5 members of Congress that we had because of the election, that the ones that had signed the Norton bill or co-sponsored the Norton bill or signed the ICANN legislative pledge. But we do have AOC and we're working hard to get her to speak out. We do have others, and I'm just really excited about getting people all across the country to get groups together to pressure their members of Congress and their senators to support the Norton bill or sign the pledge or whatever else they can do to get the world ready for nuclear abolition. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky. I saw we had one hand up and then it went down. And Patrick, I see your hand up, but I do want to give space if there was one other person who from the audience had a question or a statement.
I think it's actually me, Mary Ryder. I'm Patrick's partner.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, it's just a comment, but like many of us, I think I feel pretty pessimistic about the whole global situation as well as our countries. But it is really a hopeful sign to me that 18 or so of our national leaders are willing to come out and actually say, yeah, we need to get rid of nuclear weapons. I mean, I think that's a really hopeful sign and step. And while I don't think politics is the only place that we should be working, I think that's great. And I think we need to continue that. And I'm hoping with what's happened in Georgia that maybe that will that'll be a good push as well.
Excellent. Yes, thank you for that. And, you know, I want to encourage us to remember, again, there is a really, really, really large minority that is pretty small, that is extraordinarily vocal and very well funded. And if we go out, so moving from the East Coast, I would say that I was very pessimistic, and especially the idea of moving into the Northwest or a northern state in the middle of the country. So for me, coming from the East Coast, I had all of these ideas and perceptions of what moving as a woman of color into a very white area, it was very scary for me. I thought that it would be like, I had all of these connotations in my mind, and that I would be like in a dangerous place, that this would not be a safe space for me, that I would have to fight for my existence. And what I have found, and I am surrounded by folks who don't have my beliefs. So I have my Black Lives Matter sign, I have my anti-war signs, and I am surrounded by pro-war signs, pro-Trump signs. And what I have found is that when I go and I speak to my neighbors and I speak to them, not from a condescending space, but I speak to them like we are all human, I find such incredible connection. And what I'm also finding is that when I'm speaking to these folks, and be it about war, be it about our politics, be it about different social issues, we find such deep connection. And what a piece that I'm finding is that these folks have been duped, and the amount of rhetoric and the amount of information and disinformation that is pretty much the only thing available here. We have to keep that in mind. These people are not lost. Hope is not lost. When we go and we speak from our hearts, and we speak to connect with them as another human, you will find it is so easy to convert once we have that heart-to-heart connection. If we come in and we're super defensive, and excuse my language, but we're like, hey, F you, buddy, you don't believe what I believe, we're not gonna get anywhere. But when we come in, I use pie recipes, because that's super popular out here. That's my in. It's either Jesus or pie. That's my in, and we can get to an incredible place. So I encourage us to think about those deep human connections and how we can make more of them. And with that in mind, unless we have another question, I do see Patrick and Teresa, your hands up, but I believe it was from before, or did you want to add one more thing?
Now, can you unmute me?
You're unmuted. You're ready to go, Teresa.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I do want to let everyone know that 5 of the Congressional Black Caucus members based here in Georgia were all invited to this session. I heard from 3 of them with their regrets. I did not hear back from Eleanor Holmes Norton, or from David Scott, or from Lucy McBath. But what we're setting up here in Georgia is face-to-face meetings with them. 4 of them are in the metro Atlanta area. So it's very important that Walisha and Shante are here, because one of those folks represent them. And when we do the breakouts, we'll find out. My Congressman Sanford Bishop from District 2 in Columbus, Albany, Macon area, he's already agreed to meet with the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. So we're gonna be setting up a meeting with him in either later this month or in December, as a means of talking about the TPNW 2nd anniversary going into force. So I'm looking forward to the discussion in the breakout, where we can talk about activities that different branches would do. And I would urge people thinking about meeting directly with their rep in the next couple of weeks, or in the next month, on this issue of the TPNW. Thank you, Rebecca, for letting me get that in.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And Barbara, I see that your hand is up.
I wondered whether someone could tell those of us who are not in Columbus today about what's happening the rest of the day at the church, the expungement event, and who's going to be attending that.
Oh, wow.
Just the won't be there.
Thank you. Glad to do it. As you can see, we're at the fabulous 4th Street Missionary Baptist Church. And this is the room where we'll be having the second part of the Fannie Lou Hamer Branch Human Rights Conference. Walisha Wilson is speaking. We have the programs here and the multi-faith initiative to end mass incarceration, which the conference in 2019 happened, and Nicole Wiesen, is it? Wiesen. Nicole Wiesen is a multi-faith initiative EMI representative who is based in Atlanta at Ebenezer Church there. And she's a part of the meeting that starts at 11. So several people have come in early from Atlanta. And so we start the meeting at 11, Barbara. And at 11, we'll be talking about expungement services. So we have a bunch of attorneys coming in from Atlanta, from the Georgia Justice Project. And the radio has been fired up because we had it announced on the radio. So I was getting lots of calls from people who want their records expunged. So people will be bringing their records here, and the solicitor general who will handle the misdemeanors and the assistant district attorney, Nicholas Hudd, will handle the felonies. So the folks who are the prosecutor level will be here to work with the attorneys and their clients on getting their records expunged. So we know that some people will come and they won't have their records with them. I have my records with me because strangely enough, I got arrested in 2013. So I'm gonna get my records expunged for those misdemeanors that I acquired in 2013. So that's what's gonna be happening this afternoon. And the church has prepared a fabulous lunch, a baked chicken, baked fish, salad, and all kinds of goodies, peach cobbler and cake. And so we're looking forward to that. And the back of the room is set up so that we'll be dining. So we'll have a break for lunch around 11:30, and then we'll have the panel discussion and the expungement services. And we'll be talking about other things associated with reentry, including access to affordable housing and all of the things that happens to people after they've been incarcerated and they try to come out and have a good life. So that's what's happening this afternoon, Barbara. Thanks for letting me share that with everyone, Barbara. Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. It's beautiful to see all of these issues coming together because, as we said, they're so interconnected. And I love that there's going to be an expungement service available, Teresa. Really such incredible work. So thank you for spearheading that and getting that group together over there. I'm a little jealous of your peach cobbler. Got to come down south and get some. So thank you. Yes. If we don't have any other questions, I'm gonna put a little map up for a moment for our breakout rooms. Okay, can everyone see my screen really quick? We want to do, just so I know they're very big regions, right? But we're trying to do east, west, south, and north. I'm going to leave the south in this big main room so that the folks at the church can participate as well. We're going to create breakout rooms. They're going to be labeled east, north, and west. You are going to be able to choose your own breakout room. So please choose where you want to coordinate and work with others to create your events or talk about actions supporting the TPNW. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If I am able to get to it, let's see, there we go. Okay.
And I'm opening the rooms now.
All right, excellent. Thank you, George.
I'll open the rooms and everyone in the South, just stay where you are.
Yes.
You should be able to choose your room now.
I'm going to go into the North Room since that is my new home, and I will see you folks. Oh, before we move in, I forgot. Oh my goodness, I have documents for you all. So I'm going to put into the chat a link, and if I need to, I can come into your breakout room and throw a link in there for you as well. But here we are.
Vicky's still here and she's the East.
Okay.
And Joan Goddard is still here. So Joan, if you would please, sorry, Rebecca, I'm stepping out of line, but this
Oh no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Make sure everybody has what they need.
So that one was East. Get link.
I don't see a West person. Philip Cole is here. He's a West person.
This one is North that I just.
Most people still haven't joined a room.
Oh, Etta, come over here and sit next to me.
A reminder, welcome Betsy Kreitz. People are joining breakout rooms based on where they are geographically. If you're in the South, you stay where you are.
Oh, great. So, Lucy, you're gonna stay in the South. You're not gonna go with the East folks. Oh,
we still have a lot of people unassigned. Over 10 people haven't gone into a breakout room yet. I'm going to start assigning people.
Actually, I will not be joining the breakout rooms. I have to leave, but we'll talk sometime this next week.
Oh, okay. We have the meeting tomorrow morning at 10 with CPP, right?
Yes.
See you then.
Okay.
I'm assigning people now, if that's okay, Rebecca. You didn't say anything, so I'm continuing.
Who's left?
Oh, I'm on mute. Sorry. Yes, thank you, George. I appreciate it. And
I think we're okay now.
I'll go into each room and
I didn't go anywhere because I'm in the South.
We got Betsy, Janice, Hawkins, Kareem, Mary White, Patrick O'Neill, Samantha and Teresa, and myself here in the South. Everyone else is elsewhere.
And George, we have Etta Lamb from the Fannie Lou Hamer branch who just joined us. And we have Nicole, Walisha, and Shante here in the big room in the South. So make sure that that's part of the recording so that the Fannie Lou Hamer branch and the other branches in the South are in the big room.
All right.
George, would you be able to assign me to the North? Because I'm on an iPad and I can't see where I can join.
I hear you, but tell me who that is.
Janice Hawkins. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Assign you to the North, Janice.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it on the table. Pass me the donuts. I'm sorry, I forgot about these. We should grab one. You want one? I don't have any napkins jumping out there.
I don't remember Rebecca telling us how much time we have, but I think we go back at either 10 after or 15 after.
Well, George, you're the timekeeper.
Yes, but not knowing how much time we have it's difficult to keep that time. Do we
Well, I
reconvene?
would say we should plan on 10 minutes.
All right,
because,
then.
yeah, the meeting ends at 10:30. So do you have the doc questions from Rebecca, George? Can you facilitate our small group?
All righty, let me look for these questions. All right. Yes, I have the Google Doc opening up. Okay. I'm going to put this on the screen so we can all see it at the same time, so I can share the joy of facilitating with y'all. So here we are. And our goal, if I heard it correctly, and I know y'all will correct me if I don't have it accurate, is for us to consider and think about actions that we can do, or events that we can hold, or ways that we can, do I have the Norse up here? Oh, goodness. Hold up. Ways that we can promote the TPNW in January where we are. So I'll go back to this thing, south. All righty.
Well, George, I can see us on the screen real big, and I can see Patrick. But could we do a kind of quick introduction of the people who are in the group?
Sure. Can y'all see on the screen our worksheet? Hello?
Yeah, so you're
Okay.
supposed to fill it.
Yes.
Are you supposed to fill it in with the attendees?
That is my plan. I'm not a great or fast typist, but if folks can introduce themselves who are in the room, I can get the names of who's online from the recording or from my chat. But
Well,
folks who are there,
If you could start here. Etta Lamb, please introduce yourself.
My name is Etta Lamb, and I'm a member of the Fannie Columbus branch, and also a member of Spice and Sons.
Okay, so Etta Lamb with the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. To my right, Shante.
Hello, I'm Shante McLaughlin. I'm with the Atlanta Metro Atlanta branch, and we just drove up, and that's it. Thank you. George, you have all of my contact information. So.
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And to your right, Shante.
Hi, I'm Alicia Wilson, out of Atlanta with the Atlanta Metro branch, and also with EMI, WALEIFAH.
And is Nicole there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Nicole Wiesen. I am the Georgia coordinator for the multi-faith initiative for EMI.
And we have Pastor J.H. Flakes III, who is the pastor of the beautiful church, and he's here with us.
Good morning.
Anyone else?
That's it for this room in terms of who's at the table.
The folks online want to quickly say their name. I don't want to rush you, but at the moment, we've only got 6 minutes left for our discussion. I can also get your names from the chat. The folks who are here, do you want to jump in and give us your name? We know Patrick's here. Myself,
Mary
George
Ryder.
Friday. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, Mary Ryder.
All right, then.
Samantha Turner.
All right.
Sue Hilton.
Sue, you're in the South?
Heck no, I'm in California.
So do you want to go to your proper room, or you want to stay with us for the next
Ah, sure. I'll go to my proper room.
All right.
This
So,
is how I
hold on.
defaulted.
Okay. I'm gonna have to stop sharing and go somewhere else and fix this for you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, it's good to see your face.
Good to see you, Sue.
Breakout rooms. All right.
Is that Betsy Price?
Yes, it
My
is.
goodness, long time no see, my North Carolina friend.
You want to unmute and say hello, Betsy? I'm going to go back to our worksheet.
Okay, hi. I finally got the sound on. I'm getting off my phone and on my computer, so there's an echo.
All right. Teresa, can you help us with the conversation of any actions that we might want to do? Hopefully y'all can see that I've shared the screen with some options. I'll try to make it bigger. And we've got about 5 minutes.
Well, what we have planned for Columbus in the Fannie Lou Hamer branch is to meet with Sanford Bishop, who is our congressperson. He was invited to this session and he had a schedule conflict. So his scheduler and I have been going back and forth on whether we can set the meeting for late December when he's in town, or for January around Emancipation Day, the 1st, or around Martin Luther King Day if he's in town. So we will be meeting with him to talk about the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons, as well as about reparations and HR 40. So I'm hoping that all of the branch members, Danita Gibson Lloyd is going to be here soon. And so all of us on the steering committee will meet with the congressman, and we may draw in some other people with them. And I want to encourage the Metro Atlanta folks to name who their congressperson is. So if Shante can say who her congressperson is, and Walisha and Nicole can say who their congresspersons are in Metro Atlanta. Who's your congressperson, Shante?
Where I live, or just period throughout the Metro Atlanta?
No, where you live.
Williams, Nakima.
Oh, Nakima Williams. So that's district, which is important. Who's your congressperson?
I am in Clayton, and right now I think it's David Scott.
David Scott, good guy. So Nicole, where are you?
I am Cobb County, and to be perfectly honest, I do not know.
Oh, okay. I think it may be Lucy McMahon, but we'll find that out because we'll be able to touch at least all of the Congressional Black Caucus members in Georgia. So that's our plan for Georgia. Thank you.
Great. And is there another branch want to report from the South? What your plans are? We have about 2.5 minutes.
No, but she's talking to North Carolina.
Who do we?
George, it's Samantha. I'd love to bring this up at our Martin Luther King Day event and workshop with our partners on what we can do to bring focus to this in this state. We do have Ted Budd here, who won't be any help, but we can certainly find many local representatives and state representatives that can sign on.
Yes, from the Southern Piedmont branch too. We hadn't talked about this yet, Samantha, but I think we might have more success at the city council level in Charlotte and Gastonia, because my rep, Patrick Henry, there's no way even trying to talk to their staff people. We tried having conversations with them as Peace Action North Carolina last year before the re-election, but they were very standoffish. But we talking strategy will help, so I'm going to put that down.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have Jeff Jackson as a rep here, and I know he will be willing to talk with us.
Oh yeah, That's true. Anybody else?
What about in the Garner, Raleigh, Wake County area? Patrick and Mary, anybody?
Well, we can certainly talk with Deborah Ross, although I found her to be a little more, let's say, slow to act and political than I had hoped she would be.
That's right.
David Price is another great one, but he's retiring. And that's off the top of my head. We have some great local representation, Rosa Gill being one of them. And I'll let Patrick say if he has any other names.
Actually, we can't let Patrick say because we're a minute overdue for convening to hear report backs from people. But someone from here, not me, please be prepared to give a 2 or 3 minute report back as I have to go close the rooms. In future, when we do this, it would be good to have someone separate facilitate who's not also trying to keep up with what's going on with the rooms. I think we'll get a notice that we have 60 seconds to close the rooms. So that means we have 60 seconds to finish and we'll have 13 minutes left to be on time ending.
Well, I think it's important to point out that the second anniversary of the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons goes into force, went into force on the 21st of January. So that's the date, which is great because it would be the weekend after the Martin Luther King weekend. So that would be a good time for us to plan some activities where we can, maybe in Columbus, we could do something at the government center where we can hold up our signs saying it would be really crazy to use nuclear weapons, folks. It would destroy a whole lot of stuff. So that's what we need to do. Hey, Robin Lloyd, good to see you. Robin is
reminding us that using nuclear weapons sets off a climate disaster worldwide in just seconds, you know, and we're doomed. Everybody else should be coming back now. And
yes,
Rebecca's back. Great.
Wonderful.
We had a very nice, cozy 2-person meeting of the East, representing the East of the United States.
Thank you, Robert. Well, since you're off mute and you've already started to share, would you like to share what the East Coast is planning to do for either entry into force day or just for support of the TPNW?
And we'll have 2 minutes for folks because we've got, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Well, it's mainly Vicky is going to give that report, but I could just say that we are thinking of trying to form a peace action Vermont statewide anti-nuclear chapter up here. We've been very behind on that score. And for us, the big issue, of course, is still the F-35. And we have some activists up here who are determined to not let go of that issue, and especially the issue of when you're accounting for the amount of
60 seconds.
Oh dear, okay. You know, the use of fuels by the military has to be incorporated with the rest of the use of fossil fuels in a certain area, because what they're doing is they're not counting the amount of fuel used by the F-35, say in South Burlington. They pretend it's not relevant, whereas that needs to be accounted for when they're summarizing how whether they're advancing on some of the goals of the climate agreement. Oops, okay, I see a call here. So I think
So you're
Vicky,
done
the rest of the
time-wise,
report.
no time for Vicky.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from the west, south, or north that would like to speak next?
Well, I'll do it for the South, because we
Great.
do have a hard stop at 10:30
Yes,
from
we
our
do.
end. So from the South, we talked about reaching out to our elected officials around the TPNW anniversary primarily. So I'm looking forward to the Southern Piedmont branch, the Triangle branch, the Metro Atlanta branch, and the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. Those are all the branches that were represented in the South session.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm putting also into the chat for us a way for you to register your event and join the meeting that's happening. It's an international meeting that's going to be happening on the 13th next week. If you'd like to join, there is an email for you to send and request an invitation. I encourage you all to do so. Thank you from the East and the South for sharing. Do we have a West Coast representative that would like to share your actions? We had a big group over there.
We didn't
Hey,
choose
Joan.
we didn't choose who was going to report. Well, is anybody else going to speak up? Deb, you were doing a lot of good talking. What we decided was that we were representing 6 different branches and that we each need to make good use of all the wonderful information that was offered to us. And we hope that we're going to get the link for that given to us so that we can be reminded of all those good ideas. And then it was we were already in the countdown by then. So.
Yeah, I understand. So I put into the chat, there is a link to the folder, which has each document. So for the North, South, East, and West, so you're able to access those documents. It has all of the resources. Everything is linked, as well as the emails are there if you want to get in contact. And we are coming up towards the end of our time, but do we have a representative from the North that would like to share?
That was the East. The report Robin gave was you identified it as the East, but it was actually North, I guess. Northeast, how's that?
She was Northeast, but we had a different group in the North, but thank you, Joe.
Cool.
Sorry, I hogged all the time, Vicky. Vicky was going to give the report. So if you have a few moments, put her on for the East.
So let's hear from the North first.
Was on briefly. I see people who might be wanting to speak, so I don't know if Deb Livingston did or not.
Anna, do you want to give our report? This is Tina. Donna and I are kind of in the Northeast, but we were in the North group, and we were sharing a little bit. Donna's her Cape Cod branch is planning an event in March, and our group is joining with some of the other peace groups around. And then Janice Hawkins was also in our group and talking about both Rebecca and Janice were talking about webinars and such because of the weather in January. So I'm hoping that they share those with a greater wealth, maybe on the list branches, sir, so that we can all take advantage of them, even those who are outside of their geographical area. That's the report from the North.
Just real quickly, we do have a big program that we're planning for March, but we've been known to go out in January, and the last time we did, it was freezing cold, but we were warm together. And this has inspired me to promote maybe doing something outside at a Rotary in January so that we can highlight this, because every action we do, including the 4th of July parade or whatever we do, we always have Black Lives Matter, we have, TPNW, and a lot of people don't know what that is. So it's just, advertising, and that's a good thing.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, everyone. We've got a few more moments. If anyone had another comment that they wanted to share.
Shantae here in Georgia wants to speak, and then I want to say the little closing remarks before we shut down.
All right, thank you, Teresa.
They can hear you.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm a member of Rotary International as well, and I'm presenting my story since I am a member this week. So if I have everyone's approval, I'll also speak about Will during that 30-minute time.
Where will you be speaking?
I'm a member of Rotary of Lakes Spivey Rotary Club. So
It's going to be a face-to-face meeting?
Yes, ma'am. It's face-to-face at the IHOP in Hampton, Georgia.
Oh, in Hampton.
In Massachusetts, a Rotary is something very different, Shantae.
Right. I'm talking about where the cars go around and around, and we stand in the middle so that everyone can see our
She's in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
I thought you were talking about Rotary International as well.
Well, I'll speak about Will at Rotary International. I had a speaking engagement about 2 months ago at Atlanta's City Hall. And they were promoted through iHeartRadio. I don't even think I shared it with Teresa. I shared the flyer online, but I spoke about Will there. It was a women's luncheon, so.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our closing remarks, I have the Join Will Today brochure. So all the women here and men who are not already members of will be invited to join today. And I do have some Peace and Freedom magazines for people. So we're going to be definitely talking about will in our second session as an introduction to who's sponsoring this wonderful conference today. And I do want to thank Barbara West and other members of the mini grant committee for providing us with the $2,500 mini grant that allows us to do the in-person event and to make sure both events are recorded. So Kareem Moore is busy there at the tech stage, making sure this is recorded so that it can be shared throughout Will. And then our meeting this afternoon will be recorded so it can be shared with throughout Will. So thanks to everyone for coming. We'll see you on the next Zoom, which I think the migration border meeting is Tuesday at 6, and the EMIDP meeting on Zoom is Monday at 2. So we have a lot of time. We're going to be seeing each other. See you, Robin. See you, everybody.
I have an announcement to make.
You can go ahead, Robin. We might lose Kareem and the folks there.
Okay. That yesterday was a very wonderful webinar, the 100th anniversary of Edith Valentine, who was executive director of International Will for decades. She's alive and well and kicking, and she was there on the call, and we were all giving her our congratulations and remembering her. And the last 50 years for women's movements in the history of the world has been incredible. And she's been involved, and Wilf has been involved in all of the international organizations and the conferences and so on. So it's very, very exciting. And I will send the link to Teresa and George and hope it will get spread to everyone else.
Incredible.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful meeting. Enjoy some peach cobbler for us.
Yes.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.